Welcome back, Hamish Taylor here again with a video on why I've never written a cookbook, why my advice for nutrition is really very simple. Now, I'm a naturopathic nutritionist, I've been practicing for nearly 30 years now, and many people have quite humbly asked me, or I've been humbled by their question, have you or why don't you ever write a book about what to eat? And my answer is very simple. Now, of course, there's hundreds of books out there which I don't need to add to because most of the information is there and it's always going to be unique to you. It's going to change as things go. So I've written an acronym down here just to keep me on track, but this is the advice that I've given throughout my career and it has served my patients extremely well. It's dynamic because essentially you can use this even if you're given two poor choices. And if you're out to the pub or at a restaurant with your friends and you've got only two choices, then you can use this to make the better of those two choices. And we're going to go through this in a moment, but there is one simple thing that you need to remember, and that is this. If you are not the primary processor of your food in your kitchen and in your gut and your mouth, then the chances of it being good for you is not that high. So I'm going to say that again. If you are not the primary processor of your food, be it in your kitchen or in your gut and mouth, then you are probably not going to find that it's got the nutrients and the life-giving properties that you need to keep you sustainably well over the long term. Now, of course, it's about finding a balance with that, and that's incredibly important to maintain your ability to be spontaneous and to be able to engage with your friendship groups and those sorts of things. But essentially, if you can do this most of the time, you're going to be in quite a good place. So what does this all mean here? Well, first of all, we're going to talk about natural. And natural food is exactly that. It's come from nature, it hasn't been processed in any way, but natural also means that it is preferably in season and that it hasn't come too far away and it's native to your environment and your genetics. Now that's extremely complex on one level, but basically how much does your shopping basket or your shopping trolley change over the year, or how often are you putting just the same stuff in every single month, every single week, however often you shop, you're getting the same sort of stuff going through the system. Now we try and vary that here as much as possible, but it's hard. It's really difficult to have all these different things, especially if you've got children in the house who don't particularly like lots of variety. But nature was very clear about this and she provided lots of different variety over the seasons and we could do well to follow that. So again, how natural is your food? So the next thing is whole. How whole is your food? And this again, it's going to come and rotate back to these similar and familiar themes. How much processing has gone on? Have your grains been stripped of all their natural fats and their proteins in the processing process to make it easier to store? Is it easy to ship? And is it easy for you to manage? Yes. Well, if it's easy on all those levels, once again, it's unlikely to be whole because these things often end up with a lot of stuff taken out so that they can be stored and produced really simply. So try and make sure that your skins are left on your food. If you are mashing a potato, you don't need to peel the skins all the time. Of course, whole also means, is it just the plant and not a whole load of extraneous chemicals and everything else that's going in there, particularly preservatives and emulsifiers. So how whole is your food? How natural is it? Now we've just touched on this. P is for pure, and what we're looking at here is obviously if you can afford it, can you go organic? And if you can't afford it, don't panic. There are a lot of ways around this. Clearly we want to go organic or as natural and freshly picked, and even better than organic if you can gather it from a good woodland or a good pasture somewhere, and that could be for all sorts of different elements of your nutrition. We're not going to go into those details now, but how pure is it? Essentially, if you can't wash it before eating it or engaging with it, then try and go for organic as often as possible. Things that are difficult to wash are things like broccoli, and I sometimes slightly joke, things like tea is really difficult to wash before you use it. So with the tongue in my cheek, I do mean try and get some organic teas if you can, especially if you're having those most days. That would be a pretty important thing to do. But pure also means that it's got as fewer chemicals as possible in it, and that you aren't using a lot of preservatives yourself to make it available to your body. And that comes to this next and really obvious point. It needs to be as fresh as possible. But there's a bit of confusion around fresh. Now, of course, fresh means fresh, it means picked, and it means there in your fridge or in your home, ready to go. But obviously, if you can go fresh as much as possible, that's going to make all the difference. It's got these life-giving properties in the food when it is fresh. But fresh food does require a lot of processing, and one of the things that doesn't seem fresh, but is actually a really good way of getting food into you and actually reduces the cooking time, is certain frozen foods. And that could be fish or any of the meats that you want, but also things like broccoli and beans and cauliflower and kale. If you freeze them first, something really simple happens, especially if they are themselves well hydrated. The cell walls of plants are made of cellulose, which we as humans do not have the capacity to digest directly. And that cellulose is a very hard packet around this cell. And if that cell is well hydrated, when you freeze it, it will burst. And in its bursting will help you get the chemistry and all the nutrients out of those cells. And also, what's an absolute added bonus, is it will take less long to cook. You are very likely to overcook frozen vegetables if you are steaming them or boiling them because they've already partially been broken down. So just be aware of that. Frozen foods can be much better for you. They're also very fresh. They have to be frozen very quickly after picking. So don't discount freezing as a form of preservation. So the next thing, and this is a little bit controversial, but it comes back to the fresh part of things, eating raw food. Now, I don't necessarily mean raw meat, and of course we can get into the whole sushi conversation, and we can get into the whole steak bleu or steak tartare in France, and I'm not advocating raw meat eating in this video, but I am advocating fruits and vegetables where you can eat them raw. They are definitely going to be a good part of your diet if you chew them extremely well. You absolutely need to chew your food well, and that's always going to improve your digestive process, but a big video on that coming at some point. But raw food is important, and one of the best ways you can get raw food into your diet is via sprouting, or as some people have now described it, activating your food. And this is taking your seeds and your legumes and your pulses and actually sprouting them, making them grow into tiny little seedlings. And you're not growing them in soil, you're growing them in water. And if you've got any questions about that, I will pop a link in the description below to some kits that you can easily use in your own kitchen or your van or your boat. And we've got lots of people in the boating and van living community who provide themselves with fresh vegetables every day through sprouting all these different types of seeds. It's one of the cheapest and most versatile way of getting awesome raw food in, and that's all because it helps to provide enzymes to your body. The food's metabolic enzymes, which is food enzymes, are so important for keeping you well, and we'll certainly be doing a video on that in due course. So raw, as much as you can, or very lightly cooked. Al dente is the term, so not completely obliterated. So this is where it comes a little bit more interesting. Aromatic. And aromatic is incredibly important because it's bringing a huge amount of phenomenal microchemistry to your nutrition. And what I'm talking about aromatic is does it smell good? Have you got all these smells as part of this flavor spectrum that you want in your diet? And aromatic means, have you got a small amount of herbs growing somewhere in a window box or in a small herb garden? You really don't need a lot of space, just a few tubs, even inside on a windowsill. But we're talking rosemary, thyme, oregano. All of these sorts of things can add phenomenal aroma and beautiful flavor to your nutrition. So if it's aromatic, if it smells good, it's going to really turn on your digestive juices, get that cephalic phase, that see it, smell it phase of digestion really kicking off. And so as much smell as possible of a good nutritious types of good quality olive oil, that sort of thing, can make a huge difference for improving your digestive ability. So make it interesting, get a few herbs going, super easy to grow, and add them to all sorts of dishes, whether it's your soups or your scrambled eggs or whatever it might be. And one that everyone will have heard of right at the end here is colour. And if your nutrition and if your food isn't full of colour, everyone has heard of eat the rainbow, and it really is crucial. The more colourful your food can be, the better it is going to be for you. It needs to be a spectrum. It needs to have variety. It needs to fit into all of these different things: natural, whole, pure, fresh, raw, aromatic and colourful, and making sure that you are the principal processor. And this is why colour is so important. It brings with it a whole different range of chemistry and antioxidants particularly, but don't underestimate what you can achieve just by adding more colour into the system. Now, this could be grated in slaws, this can be cooked up, I don't care how you do it, but just get your red cabbage in there, get your red and green beans in there, get your broccoli and your cauliflowers, get your different types of peppers in there, your sweet bell peppers, and of course all the different colours of the fruits. It is a very natural spectrum, and it's very rare to find someone who doesn't like the colours of natural fruit. We're naturally drawn to them as human beings. We shouldn't underestimate how important that is to see this vibrant, diverse colour in our salad bowls and in our fruit bowls. And of course that includes certain things like flowers, like nasturtium flowers and things like that. Again, very easy to grow. Lots of different things that we don't tend to eat, primrose flowers, etc. But again, you have to do your due diligence there. This is not nutritional advice to you directly as an individual, unfortunately, because of the nature of the world we live in and the way that this is being broadcast. But get colour in your system. So this is why I've never written a recipe book or a menu book or a what to eat book, because if you are in a situation where you have got a choice, how natural, how pure, how whole, how fresh, how raw, how aromatic and colourful is it, and which is the better choice for you? And if you've got a tomato sauce, which is the better? Is one being highly processed and one that's been homemade? It's not complicated, but if you're in a supermarket and making a choice, it doesn't even need to be between necessarily particularly good health foods, but how far away is it from this natural, whole, pure, fresh, raw, aromatic and colourful list? And then you just make the choice. And then you know that you have made the best choice out of two possibly not great options, but you've made the better choice of the two. And that is going to be empowering to you to help you get good decisions into your body so you can get your health on the right track and just be sustainably well and not get neurotic about it. So you've been staring at this list for long enough. I don't need to repeat it anymore. I hope that's been useful, and we'll see you next time.